I still remember the day perfectly. The empty driveway where my car should have been, the excited chatter about wedding flowers and venues drifting through the open windows, and my father's casual announcement that shattered my world. "We sold your car for Lisa's wedding." He beamed as if he'd done me a favor. "Your sister needs a perfect day, and that vintage Mustang you never drive was just sitting there collecting dust." Never drive. I had worked 3 jobs through college to restore that car. It was my pride and joy, my escape plan, and most importantly, it was mine. "But that was my car," I stammered, still staring at the empty space in the driveway. "I paid for it. I restored it. You had no right, Dash." "Oh, Hannah," my mother cut in, barely looking up from her wedding magazine. "Don't be selfish. Lisa's wedding is more important than some old car. Besides, you can always buy another one someday." Lisa, my perfect older sister, didn't even pretend to feel guilty. She just kept scrolling through venue photos on her iPad, occasionally showing Mother another overpriced option they'd now be able to afford with my car money. That was 6 years ago. Now, sitting in my corner office at Phoenix Real Estate Development, I looked down at the document that would finally give me the revenge I'd been planning all these years. "Miss Parker." My assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "The final paperwork for the Oakwood Heights acquisition is ready for your signature." Oakwood Heights, the luxury apartment complex where my parents had lived for the past decade. The same building they'd bragged about at every family gathering, though they were only renting. The property they dreamed of owning but could never afford. Until today it had belonged to Maxwell Development Group. Tomorrow it would be mine. My name is Hannah Parker, though in the real estate world I'm better known as HP Phoenix, the ruthless CEO who turned a small property management company into one of the largest real estate development firms in the state. My parents don't know that, of course. They still think I'm struggling in some entry-level property management job. The last time I visited them 3 months ago, they'd spent the entire dinner talking about Lisa's perfect life, her doctor husband, their 3 kids, their summer home in the Hamptons. Meanwhile, they'd looked at me with barely concealed disappointment when I mentioned I was still in real estate. "You know," my mother had said, sipping her wine, "Lisa's husband might be able to get you a receptionist position at his hospital. Something more stable." I had smiled and declined, not mentioning that I owned the building his hospital rented for their administrative offices. Or that I was about to acquire the very roof over their heads. My phone buzzed, a text from Lisa. "Mom says you haven't RSVP'd for my anniversary party. It's only the biggest event of the year." The biggest event of the year. Just like her wedding had been the most important day ever, important enough to steal my car for. I picked up the acquisition paperwork and began signing. Each stroke of my pen brought me closer to the moment I'd been waiting for. The moment they'd realize that their perfect daughter wasn't the only one who could succeed. "Miss Parker." My assistant again. "Your father is calling." 3rd time today. Of course he was. The first rent increase notice had probably arrived. "Tell him I'm in a meeting." I already knew what he wanted to say. The same thing he'd been complaining about for weeks, how the new management company, one of my subsidiaries, had raised the rent by 30%. How they weren't responding to his demands for special treatment because he'd been a loyal tenant for 10 years. My phone buzzed again. A message from my mother. "Hannah, please call your father. This rent situation is getting out of hand. We need you to talk to your property management contacts. That's the least you can do for family." Family. The word felt bitter in my mouth. Where was this concern for family when they sold my car without permission? Where was this respect for family when they dismissed every achievement that didn't match Lisa's? I opened my laptop and pulled up the security camera feed from Oakwood Heights. There they were, my parents, walking into their dream apartment with Lisa and her perfect family. Probably gathering for another dinner I wasn't invited to. Through the lobby cameras, I could see my father waving the rent increase notice, complaining to the building manager, another employee who had no idea their CEO was his unsuccessful daughter. My desk phone lit up. "Miss Phoenix? Legal has confirmed the acquisition is complete. Oakwood Heights is officially yours." "Thank you," I replied. "Please proceed with Phase 2. Phase 2, the part I'd been planning since I first learned Maxwell Development was willing to sell. The part where my parents would learn that their dream home now belonged to their disappointment of a daughter. I picked up another folder. Inside were the new lease terms I'd had drawn up. No more rent control. No more special treatment for long-term tenants. And most importantly, no more subsidized housing for retired couples. The program my parents had used to afford their luxury apartment all these years. My father had always bragged about his business acumen, how he'd discovered this amazing deal that let them live in luxury for a fraction of the market rate. He never mentioned that it was meant for truly needy seniors, not comfortable retirees who spent their savings on their daughter's extravagant wedding. Another text from Lisa. Really, Hannah? Too busy with your little real estate job to even respond about my party? Some sister you are. I smiled, thinking about the invitation sitting on my desk. The party was scheduled for next month, right around the time their eviction notice would arrive. My phone buzzed again. An email from the building manager at Oakwood Heights. Dear Ms. Phoenix, as requested, we've reviewed all tenant files for compliance with the subsidized housing program. Initial findings suggest several tenants, including the Parkers in Unit 1202, do not meet the income requirements. How would you like us to proceed? I leaned back in my chair, looking at the framed photo on my wall, my old Mustang, the one they'd sold without a second thought. I'd kept the photo as a reminder not of the car itself, but of the moment I realized my family would never respect what was mine. Proceed according to protocol, I typed back. No exceptions. The building manager's response was immediate. Even for the Parkers? They've mentioned several times that their daughter works in property management. They seem to think this gives them some connection. I laughed out loud. If they only knew their daughter wasn't just in property management, she owned half the luxury properties in the city. Especially the Parkers, I replied. And please forward me their complete rental history. I want to review it personally. Opening another folder on my desk, I examined the photos of my latest development project, a new luxury apartment complex rising just blocks from Oakwood Heights. Its units would rent for triple what my parents were paying now. My assistant's voice interrupted my thoughts. Miss Parker? The building manager at Oakwood Heights says your mother is in the lobby, demanding to speak with someone about the rent increase. I switched to the lobby security feed. There she was, designer handbag on her arm, probably another gift from Lisa, trying to intimidate the front desk staff with her, "Don't you know who I am?" attitude. Tell them to handle it according to standard procedure, I replied. No special treatment. I thought about the car they'd sold, not just any car but the one I'd spent years restoring. Every weekend working extra shifts, every evening spent learning mechanics, every dollar saved instead of spent on the luxuries they thought I should want. They'd sold it without a second thought, because Lisa's perfect wedding was more important than anything I had worked for. Now they were about to learn that karma has a way of coming full circle. I picked up my phone and typed a message to the building manager. Please inform all non-compliant tenants that their leases will be reviewed next week. No exceptions, no extensions. Then I added, and make sure Mrs. Parker understands that her daughter's position in property management has no bearing on company policy. The irony was almost too perfect. They'd sold my car to give Lisa her dream wedding. Now I was about to take away their dream home to teach them about respect. My phone buzzed one final time, another text from Lisa. Mom's really upset about this rent thing. Can't you do something? Use your connections? That's what family is for. I smiled, thinking about the documents sitting on my desk. Family is for supporting each other, respecting each other's property, celebrating each other's achievements, even when they don't match your expectations. Tomorrow they would learn what happens when you forget those simple truths. Tomorrow they would discover that their struggling daughter now owned their dream home. And unlike them, I wouldn't pretend it was for their own good when I took away something they loved. The next morning I sat in my office reviewing the final details. My parents' rental history showed exactly what I'd suspected. They'd lied on their subsidy application, claiming a much lower income to qualify for reduced rent. In the corporate world we called that fraud. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since dawn. First my father, then my mother, finally Lisa, all demanding I do something about the rent situation. If only they knew I already had. Miss Parker. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Your father is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about seeing someone from management. I switched to the security feed. There he stood, rental agreement in hand, that familiar look of entitled anger on his face. The same expression he'd worn when I dared to complain about him selling my car. Send him to conference room B, I said. Tell him the owner wants to discuss his situation personally. Time for the mask to come off. I straightened my designer suit worth more than 6 months of their rent, and made my way to the conference room. Through the glass walls I could see him pacing, probably rehearsing the speech he'd given so many times about being a valued long-term tenant. The look on his face when I walked in was priceless. Hannah. He blinked rapidly. What are you? I'm here to see the owner. You are, I replied calmly, taking a seat at the head of the table. Hello, Dad. He stared at me, understanding slowly dawning on his face. You own Phoenix Real Estate? Development, I corrected him. Phoenix Real Estate Development. We acquired Oakwood Heights yesterday, along with several other luxury properties in the city. He sank into a chair, rental agreement slipping from his fingers. But, you're just in property management, you said. I let you believe what you wanted to believe, I said, opening the folder in front of me. Just like you let me believe my car was safe in your driveway. That was different, he protested weakly. Lisa's wedding dash was more important than respecting my property? I finished for him. Just like your comfort is more important than following rental agreement rules? I pulled out their original rental application with its conveniently underreported income. Fraud is a serious offense, Dad. Lying to qualify for subsidized housing meant for truly needy seniors? That could cause problems with more than just your lease. His face paled. You wouldn't. Like you wouldn't sell my car without permission? I smiled coldly. But I'm feeling generous. You have 2 options. I laid out 2 documents. Option 1. Vacate the property within 30 days, no legal charges filed. Option 2. Face fraud charges and immediate eviction. Your choice. We can't afford market rate anywhere in this area, he said, his voice shaking. Your mother. She loves that apartment. It's her dream home. And my Mustang was my dream car, I replied. Funny how dreams work, isn't they? My phone buzzed, a text from Lisa. Dad just called me crying. What did you do? I ignored it, focusing on our father's crumbling expression. You have until tomorrow to decide. When, Dad? The anniversary party next month? Don't bother saving me a seat. After he left, I called my assistant. Please inform Mrs. Parker that her presence is required for a lease review meeting this afternoon. My mother arrived 2 hours later, perfectly coiffed as always, Lisa at her side for support. They both froze when they saw me sitting behind the desk. Hannah. Lisa's voice was sharp. What are you doing here? We're waiting for the property owner. Hello, Lisa, I smiled. Still planning that anniversary party? Better make sure you have the venue secured. Wouldn't want to sell someone else's car to pay for it. My mother's hand flew to her throat. You own Oakwood Heights? Among other properties, I gestured to the city view behind me. That building there? The new development on 5th? Also mine. The office complex where Lisa's husband works? I own that too. Lisa sank into a chair, her perfect composure cracking. All this time, I confirmed, while you were mocking my little real estate job, I was building an empire. While you were bragging about your perfect life, I was buying up half the luxury properties in the city. Including, I paused for effect, your dream home, Mother. You can't evict us, my mother whispered. We're family. Family. I laughed. Like when you watched Dad sell my car without saying a word. Like when you told relatives I was still finding my way, while Lisa had everything figured out. I pulled out their fraudulent rental application. You lied to qualify for subsidized housing. That's fraud. I could have you arrested. You wouldn't dare, Lisa snapped, but her voice trembled. I pressed a button on my desk phone. Please send in the police officer waiting outside. Their faces went white as an uniformed officer entered. I'd arranged this for dramatic effect. Sometimes revenge needs a theatrical touch. Officer Matthews is here to take your statement about the rental fraud, I said calmly. Unless what? My mother asked, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Unless you sign these papers, I pushed a document across the desk. Voluntary vacancy within 30 days, no charges filed. Your choice. Lisa stood up, anger replacing fear. This is ridiculous. You're really going to make our parents homeless over some old car? No, I corrected her. I'm teaching them that actions have consequences. That respecting others' property matters. That maybe, just maybe, their unsuccessful daughter deserved more respect than they gave her. My mother reached for the papers with trembling hands. Where will we go? There's a lovely apartment complex on the other side of town, I said. Basic but clean. About the price of a vintage Mustang, actually. Per year. As they left my office, defeated and humbled, I called out one last time. Oh, and Lisa? About your anniversary party at the country club next month? I own that now. Consider your reservation cancelled. The next few weeks were a symphony of desperate calls and messages. Relatives I hadn't heard from in years suddenly wanted to reconnect. Family friends reached out to mediate. Lisa's husband even tried to approach me at my favorite restaurant, not realizing I owned that too. I watched through security cameras as they packed up their dream apartment, boxing up the life they'd built on lies and disrespect. Each day more moving trucks arrived, taking away pieces of their perfect world. The day they turned in their keys, I sat in my office looking at an old photo, my Mustang, gleaming in the sunlight after years of restoration work. Below it I'd placed their final notice. Vacancy completed. Unit 1202 is now empty. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from my mother. I hope you're happy now. You've destroyed our lives over a car. I typed back a single response. No, I taught you a lesson about respect. The car was just the catalyst. The rest? That was all you. Then I blocked their numbers and turned to my window, watching the sun set over my city. In the distance, I could see the new luxury development rising where my parents' building stood, soon to be the most exclusive address in town. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd sold my car to give Lisa her perfect day. I'd bought their home to show them that their unsuccessful daughter had become more powerful than they could imagine. Sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about showing those who undervalued you exactly what they failed to see. I picked up my phone and called my assistant. Schedule the demolition of Oakwood Heights for next week. It's time for something new. And the Parkers' old unit? She asked. I smiled, thinking of the empty apartment where they'd once planned to live out their retirement in luxury. Turn it into the building's garbage collection room. It seems fitting. After all, they'd treated my dreams like trash. Now they could watch their former home become exactly that. The next morning I drove to work in my new car, a restored vintage Mustang, exactly like the one they'd sold. It had cost more than their annual rent, but that didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the lesson they'd learned. Never underestimate the daughter you pushed aside. She might just end up owning everything you hold dear. And unlike them, she won't pretend it's for your own good when she takes it all away.